You good? Mike, where's Dante? Where's here? Oh, there you are. Okay. Good morning, everybody. You know that phrase, this is a day the Lord made? Good Lord. What an extraordinary day. It is an incredible pleasure and honor to be here at Port Newark alongside so many partners whose work have made the Port of New York and New Jersey the #1 international shipping destination on the East Coast. Moreover, their efforts are now ensuring this port remains open and in efficient operation in the face of the global supply chain challenges that have essentially crippled other ports. Among those with us this morning are the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey's Deputy Director of the Port, Beth Ann Rooney, Jim McNamara, Chief of Staff and Director of Public Relations at the International Longshoremen's Association, and a big shout out to the ILA and its members, and the and the President and CEO of Port Newark Container Terminal, Jim Policcio. And we'll hear from each of them shortly. I know Senator Joe Cryan and Assemblywoman Ileana Pinter-Marin each wanted to be here this morning. They could not be, but I'm sending greetings on their behalf. And by the way, the supply chain challenges, I also want to give a shout out to members of law enforcement, especially the port police here, guys. God bless you all. Thank you. And thank you for getting me in here this morning as well, by the way. It's through, like a hot knife through butter, these guys took us through a lot of traffic out there. The supply chain, which we'll get to in a minute, the supply chain challenges. By the way, Jenny Toth, I should say, is here. Ben Feldman, Jim Cobb. I see a bunch of friends of ours and great leaders are here. The supply chain challenges are a direct result of the pandemic. And let me just say, without any amount of joy, the pandemic is still in our midst and unfortunately still raging. We have over 1,750 folks in the hospital. Over 250 of them went into the hospital literally in the past 24 hours. And hospitals announced, tragically not yet confirmed, 21 deaths overnight. So I say all of that just to say this thing is still with us, and sadly the numbers are going up. The sequencing for this disease and virus lags the actual anecdotal evidence. But while Omicron is listed as a small percentage of cases right now in New Jersey, I'm here to tell you it's much more prevalent than that, and not just in New Jersey, in the entire Northeast and especially the metro New York area. I also see a dear friend and fierce advocate for anybody he represents, Joe Bauman, is with us. At some point, Joe, we're going to have to analyze what Brian Kelly did going from Notre Dame to LSU, but that's not today's business. So back to why we're here. Over the past weeks, our television screens have relayed story after story of supply chain and logistical breakdowns. We've been shown months-long backups of cargo ships, of cargo off port. We've been warned of impending shortages of any number of products. And by the way, that includes a lot of products that are due for our kids a week from Saturday. But take a look around here. Those stories and images have all come from ports elsewhere, especially on the Pacific coast. Here at Port Newark and Elizabeth especially, you're not going to find those images. In fact, a recent report from the global logistics firm Schiffel found that it is now nearly 25% faster for ships from China to call upon this port than the ports on the West Coast. Think about that for a second. It is anything but a direct line from China to New Jersey. And yet a ship leaving China today can save itself nearly 2 weeks total time by logging thousands of additional miles and coming here rather than making a beeline across the Pacific. This is possible because of the tremendous partnerships we find here at the Port of New York and New Jersey. We have ensured critical investments in projects that have kept our ports strong and competitive. Whether it be the Port Authority's work to dredge the waterways to allow vessels easier ingress and egress, or our partnership and day out. New investments in cranes, gate infrastructure, and yard equipment have made these critical jobs easier. And as containers are taken off ship service for large fleets, getting commercial driver's licenses into the hands of truckers and replenishing the ranks of our trucking companies. Together, these steps and likely more have prevented the worst kinds of shipping nightmares we see, especially out west, from occurring here. To consumers in New Jersey and elsewhere along the mid-Atlantic coast in particular, our message to you is clear. Here at the Port of Newark and Elizabeth, the goods you need, from household items right through to Santa Claus's presents, are on the way. But there is by no means a belief that we can't do more to further improve port operations. And I say that particularly because this pandemic, and I say this with the heaviest of hearts and no glee, is going to get worse before it gets better. In the work we can do still to be done, and not just to insulate ourselves against the next major global crisis, but to keep this the busiest and best run port operation in the best of times. And we know many of these needed improvements aren't just to be made here within the gates. Some of the most critical investments are to be made actually outside of the port itself. Through the New Jersey Department of Transportation, for instance, and our partners at the Turnpike Authority, we will be undertaking a widening of the turnpike around our ports to keep traffic moving. In fact, I am grateful especially to Senator Bob Menendez for his advocacy and leadership. Traffic backups in this area aren't anything new, to be sure, and they aren't significantly more impactful in this supply chain emergency than in prior years. But as with so many things, we're no longer willing to just accept the status quo as acceptable in any regard. As we work to further electrify port operations, and as the new generation of electric trucks come online and get on our roadways, we will also, in the same breath, we cannot understate the importance of our ports to our state's economy in the many, many thousands of jobs and billions of dollars in economic activities these operations support up and down the entire supply chain. Thankfully, these ports are operating at full capacity and full efficiency. They are keeping the goods Americans need flowing. In the efforts that we have all undertaken, alone and in partnership, and again, especially with our brothers and sisters in labor, and especially the ILA, all of those efforts are paying huge dividends. With that, and to speak more directly to the Port Authority's work, it is now my pleasure to introduce the Deputy Director of the Port, Beth Ann Rooney. Beth Ann?
Good morning. And again, Governor Murphy, thank you for joining us here at the Great Port of New York and New Jersey this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you here. We have many partners and friends and stakeholders here joining us this morning. We really could not be in the position that the governor mentions us without the partnership and the collaboration and coordination that we've all, much smaller but very important facility process improvements and enhancements that have been made at all of our terminals. But what's important also to understand that those infrastructure investments that have been made now allow for 10 of these giant, largest container ships that are serving the Port of New York and New Jersey to call here at the same time. In addition to those 10 ultra-large container vessels that can be worked concurrently, many other smaller vessels can be handled at the same time at our facilities. So with the infrastructure leading outside of the port facilities, but we're not done. Our Port Master Plan indicates that we are going to double, if not triple, our cargo volume in the next 25-year period. We have to continue to moving within the United States. The commitment, the tenacity, the patience of all of the men and women who have been working throughout this time is really, truly to be applauded. The other area that I would say is quite different about the Port of New York and New Jersey and has allowed us to be successful is the one-of-a-kind Council on Port Performance, which, Governor, we started with the New York Shipping Association over 5 years ago, and we continue to use that partnership with stakeholders across the supply chain that are all sitting at the table together, proactively working on issues so that we can stay ahead of the challenges that are ahead of us. We will continue to leverage that partnership. We also, since the pandemic started, have been working on a biweekly key stakeholder conference call that includes all of the terminal operators, the trucking community, labor, chassis providers, and more. So we didn't need somebody to tell us that we need to coordinate and collaborate better. It's been something that we've been doing for many, many years, and that has paid off. So again, we thank you for the opportunity to show you again how great the Port of New York and New Jersey is. And on behalf of Port Director Sam Ruda, myself, and the entire Port Authority team, we wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, happy holiday season, and most importantly, a healthy and happy 2022. So thank you.
All kidding aside, and by the way, you made 2 points that I want to underscore. That council has made a huge difference, and everyone associated with it deserves a lot of credit because it was done preemptively and proactively and not in reaction to a crisis. And because it was put together, it has helped us deal with a crisis unlike any that we've ever dealt with before. And secondly, I made part of this point, and you made it more eloquently. It's not just the pride we take in what we have done.
Murphy, Rooney, McNamara, Murphy. The pattern here. Good day, everybody. Good day, Governor Murphy. Thank you so much for coming here today. Early in the pandemic and throughout the pandemic, in many talks you had with our President Harold Daggett and Dennis Daggett, you called our ILA longshoremen America's frontline heroes. And we thank you for that. They continue to be America's frontline heroes. And I'm joined here today by the men that lead those men and women, those frontline heroes, from many of our locals here in the ILA, Buddy Smith and Herbie Hall from Local 1233, the leadership, Brandon Garcia from 1235 and his members. We have Jimmy LaGrasso from Local 1 and Local 1 members. And of course, that American flag behind us was put up by the great delivered throughout the country through the Port of New York and New Jersey. And we thank the brave men and women of the International Longshoremen for that. I will join Beth and wishing everybody the merriest of Christmases, and let's pray for a healthy new year and the end of this horrible COVID crisis. Be safe, and ILA means I love America. Thank you, Governor.
Jim, thank you. Deep appreciation. One of the most remarkable things about the port that struck me early on, even as a candidate, Jim, I remember meeting you as a candidate. I remember meeting Harold and Dennis at around the same time, is that when I heard about what still needed to be done or unfinished business or challenges, I heard virtually the same thing from management as I did from labor. And that's something that folks out there need to know. That this is a part of the reason why this works so well is everybody's in this together. And it was striking from moment one, and it was striking in the absence of crisis. And God knows it has been even more salient in crisis. So, Jim, thank you to you and your colleagues. Last but not least, for sure, another vital player and leader. And it is an honor to be with him. Please help me welcome the President and CEO of Port Newark Container Terminal, Jim Pulicchio. Jim?
That's a tough group to follow. So I want to get this right now. We've got Murphy, we got McNamara, and we got Rooney. There's someone in the Mediterranean, if I were to say Pulich, I don't this would get you an office here. Bring the troopers too. I mean, it's a beautiful day and we really appreciate it. And I want to just say good morning and welcome you, Governor Murphy, and of course, all your expansion. You know, Governor, you mentioned when we first met, and the things you heard are true. You know, I'm in this industry now 11 years, and when I came here, I heard the same things. I spent a lot of time in the supply chain, but I heard the same things from real people who worked in it every day under extraordinary circumstances. And the coming together, at least in my own experience in the last 11 years, but really in the time in these, you know, under stress, is when you realize just how fragile the supply chain is. Today, PNCT sits on approximately 314 acres. It includes 10,000 feet of on-dock rail operations, 4,500 feet of berth, 13 super post-Panamex gantry cranes, 120 straddle carriers that you see moving around the terminal now, and capable of handling 2 million TEUs with over 750 employees. To your point, Governor, since 2011, Port Newark Container Terminal has executed infrastructure investments of $425 million. Those investments have allowed PNC to increase capacity by 80%. Governor, as a point of focus, that capacity plan was planned for the next 15 years. We're at 90% utilization today. There's an additional $400 million in projects currently on the books and planned for development here at PNCT. The future possibilities and the further expansion here at Port Newark is real, it is required, and it's well within our reach. The Port Authority's master plan, as Beth mentioned, provides a roadmap for expansion at Port Newark. It was a collaborative effort. Together with the City of Newark, the New Jersey Institute of Technology, the Port Authority, and with the support of the ILA workforce, we are laser focused on future growth in the region. Our priorities today and in the future are built on environmentally sensitive development, job creation and security, strengthening and expanding our public-private partnerships, hardening infrastructure, and land use optimization, all setting the stage for innovative growth. Now, there's much learned from our experience over the past 2 years. It's clear to me, as a marine terminal operator, that the fragile and connected nature of the supply chain is more widely understood across the country and on a global basis. I can speak for Port Newark, but there are other cases. We have a proven track record of working collaboratively to strengthen and improve infrastructure in this port. Governor, please be assured of our commitment to the development and strengthening of Port Newark, working together with key stakeholders in New Jersey, Washington, and the private sector. The future for PNCT and the Port of New York and New Jersey is bright. Truly, together we have and we can make a difference. Thank you so much for coming today and acknowledging all of us here in Port Newark.
Jim, that was awesome. I just said he's an honorary Irish. You know, that's all she wrote, as they say, or in Hollywood, it's a rap. But as we break, it is important to also remember, long before the pandemic, the shift in retail and commerce from in-person to virtual was an undeniable shift, putting a lot of pressure on retail locations on the one hand, but exploding the e-commerce reality for Americans and indeed folks around the world. So you already had a huge ramping up of activity here, and especially here as well as in the region, warehousing, etc. And then you layer on top of that a pandemic. It makes what's being done here even more remarkable and more laudable. And if you ask me, well, why are you here on this particular day, I would just say with 8 days to go till Christmas, and having seen for now almost 2 years, the extraordinary performance, this is as good a time as any to come here and pay homage to that huge success by all parties. So on behalf of Beth and Jim and the rest of the team, I thank you all for everything you do day in and day out. I wish you happy holidays, great Christmas, great New Year, and please God, here's to a prosperous and healthy 2022. Thank you all.